"Are you available to speak?" he texted me. I immediately responded, "Of course." I'd love to tell you that when someone begins working with our team, it is just smooth sailing to the shortest sentence, an earlier release from prison, more liberty on the other side, everything I know all of you watching this want. It's why you're here. But it doesn't always start off smoothly, and beginning to take action is a great step, though at times things can go bad, might not get off to the right start. And that happened about 5 weeks ago when this executive back east retained our team. And shortly after retaining our team, he went dark. I reached out, Forrest reached out, Killian reached out, Brad reached out, Joseph reached out, everyone reached out, and he went dark. Then he would respond a few days later, "Okay, let's have a call." We'd call, no one would pick up. And we know he has some important dates upcoming. And despite those dates and him knowing that he needs to prepare, because he knows if he doesn't do this work, it could lead to what? A longer federal prison sentence. Despite all of these facts, gone totally dark. Now, for clarity, I can empathize with someone going dark because, as you might have read through Lessons from Prison or some of the other work that I've produced, I tended to go dark as a defendant. Maybe it's a tendency as an introvert. I prefer solitude, wouldn't pick up the phone. Back then, texting wasn't a big thing, but I can relate to going dark. I did it on family. I did it on my lawyers. I did it with friends. I wanted to sit alone and wonder and ponder, how the hell did I end up here? And yes, I knew in so doing, I was making matters worse for me, for my family, and the victims who wanted their money back. So certainly I can empathize with our client who is encouraging me to share this story. And by the way, welcome to the White Collar Advice. We're so thankful that you're here. So during this 5-week window, I wouldn't reach out and say, "Checking in, how are you?" I know that he's reading them. What I would continue to do is send information, insights, articles, work that we're producing that I believed he was reading and confirmed he read, even though he didn't respond, that I knew would get him closer to just at least being prepared for some of these inevitabilities. And finally, after about 5 weeks, he texted requesting that we speak. And when I spoke with him, I said, he apologized. I said, don't apologize. I know this is difficult. And in so many ways, we are alike. We're a little quiet, a little introverted, can be a little aloof. And I'm not going to judge you. I was you, but you know what happened because of the choices that I made at your stage, which is why we've got to get on track. And the earlier you can begin to prepare, the better. That kind of transitioned into an interesting conversation about Michael Santos, sort of just brought it up out of the blue. And I said, "Well, why are you bringing up Michael?" And he said, "Well, I read Earning Freedom, a book that all of you can read." And I'm like, "Okay, great book, big book." And he's like, "Michael did all of that work, but there was no guarantee anything would happen." I said, "Aha. Okay, now we're getting to some of the root issues." I said, "That's right. Michael wrote Earning Freedom. He spent 26 years in prison without any chance of really advancing his release date. He had lifetime parole. There was no First Step Act that he helped implement in 2018. None of those things were available. He did the work to be productive, to contribute, to give back, to prove worthy of the love and support of his family. He did it for the right reasons. He wasn't obsessed on an end. The end was he was going to get out after 26 years, whether he built and created or he watched TV all day." And he's like, "Well, that's sort of a problem that I'm dealing with. There's no certainty that this work is actually going to help me." And I said, that is absolutely correct. There is no guarantee that if you do all of this work to influence these people who are not fans of yours, that it's going to lead to the outcome you want. That is something we absolutely have to embrace. And I said, to thrive through this process, you've got to accept some sort of uncertainty. You've got to find some strength and freedom that comes with uncertainty, of not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but perhaps of the value in living with dignity while going through a very uncertain time. But if you are so focused on an end, I told him, you won't be paying attention to the means. And the means, many people would argue, are as important as the end. And that's the irony, I told him. When you care more about the means, the behaviors, what you do every single day, as you begin to prepare, you're actually going to get what you want, the end. Much like Michael did that work without any end in mind, but look what happened. Successful business, career. He had lifetime probation. He got off probation after 1 year. His work is a First Step Act approved program in the Bureau of Prisons. 1 million people a year go through coursework that he creates. He didn't start that work thinking, I'm only going to do this if 1 million people in prison go through my programs. No, absolutely not. Our conversation then transitioned into some of the shame and pain that he's feeling. And damn, do I know that shame and pain. And this person, good dude, he's like, man, I've let so so many people down, man. I mean, good God, that like I've let so many people down. And it gets to a point where if you are unable to let go of the past and let go of some of the regret and guilt and shame, you will never be focused on what's most important, ever. And I conveyed that to him. I know you're remorseful. I know that you're authentic. I know that you are ashamed. But at some point, if it isn't let go, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do next, which is send that very difficult email to your lawyer, which is preparing for this very important interview that you have upcoming. So it's good to learn from the past, but at some point, people, you've got to let go. From there, our conversation shifted into more embarrassment and shame, but then the perception, what he expects his life to be because of this conviction. And I'll tell you, Google, prison, felon, convictions, okay, man, it ain't great. So it's very easy to presume that if someone has struggled with employment, housing, mental health, making money again, and it can be more difficult for some of the white collar guys if you've made big money, and this was an executive in the insurance industry, a healthcare industry, making really good money, then it's like, oh my God, I'm going to start over at zero. I'll be honest with you, that scared the hell out of me. In prison, I used to tell Michael that it scared the hell out of me. I had this pain point in my mind of $400,000 a year, and then it's like zero. In a way, you're almost like, I wish I never made the 500, because then seeing the zero or something small is too much to take in because you expect this. So it's that process as well. So in order to overcome this and actually to get going, which is why it's so essential that the earlier someone begins to prepare, the better, is because it's going to take time to overcome some of this shame and pain, letting go of the past, learning to embrace uncertainty, becoming more resilient. That freaking takes time, man. Every single day, you've got to cultivate that habit. You've got to build on it day by day, which is why the earlier you start, the better. The earlier you start, the better, because it requires shifting perceptions. It can be miserable, I told him. I said, I can't guarantee what's going to happen. I can't change what brought you here. But if you continue to make these decisions, that much I know. Decisions that don't enable you to prepare, decisions that separate you more from your family because you're ostracizing them, making it harder on them, you are going to fall into the self-fulfilling prophecy that absolutely, in time, the perceptions that are already in your mind are going to happen. You won't get that job. You won't make the money. You won't lose that weight that's bogged you down for so long, because like me, when you're depressed, you eat. We are alike in so many ways, but until you shift this perception of what is in store for you, you're not going to get what you want. And worse, it's absolutely going to happen. For sure. You are working your way there. I'm going to close this video. And again, he's encouraging me to share this. And he assured our team at the end of our call that he's ready. We're going to do the work. We're going to begin to create. He's going to hold people he hired, including our team, accountable. And it's not like it's so devastating, 5 or 6 weeks. No, it's not devastating. He didn't start. I mean, he did start, didn't follow through and do that work. But I said to him at the end of our call, I'm not going to do we can't do the happy talk. Like, Justin, we're going to do, you can't be inspired for 30 minutes. This isn't Tony Robbins where you're inspired for 2 hours and then you go back to your daily life. You've forgotten about absolutely everything. It's part of the reason I turned away from such a lucrative ethics, compliance, speaking career. And the money was great. Don't get me wrong. I still do some of it primarily for the money, because I don't think I have the impact speaking to accountants, Goldman Sachs executives for 45 or 60 minutes, half of whom are on their iPhone the whole time and they get back. You haven't changed the habit. You haven't cultivated the character. You haven't built the record day by day, so when you struggle, you can fall back on it. And that's how I closed the call with him. I said, you're telling me you want to do the work. We will see. We're going to see if you show up for that call, and we're going to see if you send that email, and we're going to see if you invest the time to prepare for that proffer, and we're going to see if you reach out to your 4 friends who you've neglected and ignored and have a cup of coffee with them and ask for the character reference letter, rather than just calling them and say, hey man, I'm going to prison, I need a letter. Are you nurturing that relationship, or are you so fixated on an end you're going to use them? We'll see. We will see. And he said, I'm going to do the work. And I said, we will see. You've got to build these habits. You've got to do the work, even on days you don't want to. So when he wants to regress, when he doesn't want to do it, which is inevitable for all of us as human beings, he can then say, okay, I've actually done it for 2 weeks. I have a track record. I'm going to do it for the next week. And a week later, when he doesn't want to do it, guess what? He now has a track record of 3 weeks, no different from an athlete who might struggle and fail, but they know they have years of a track record to rely on and guide them through really difficult times. The earlier you start preparing for sentencing, the better. And guess what? I know you want the shorter sentence, but even if you don't get exactly what you want, that work, I assure you, will help you overcome all of the inevitable obstacles and overcome this perception that so many people have of the felon class, including white-collar defendants, that we're greedy, we're short-sighted, we're arrogant. And until you, through your own efforts, build that record that demonstrates that you're different and begin to identify with stakeholders who you want to influence through shared values, until you do that, more struggle is coming. Goodbye.